Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Let's get started with the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper, beginning with a news item on page number 1 of the Delhi edition of The Hindu. Prime Minister Modi yesterday announced on the floor of the Lok Sabha formation of a trust for the construction of a Ram temple at Ayodhya. The trust is named Shri Ram Jannabhoomi Tirth Kshetra. Few facts. Why did the Prime Minister announce the trust in Lok Sabha? Because in November 2019, Supreme Court paved the way for the construction of a Ram temple at Ayodhya. For those who don't know, there was a dispute as to who is the owner of the disputed 2.77 acres of land at Ayodhya. Supreme Court last year ruled that the entire disputed land be allotted to Lord Ram. Muslims, on the other hand, would be given 5 acres of land at an alternate site at a prominent location where they may construct a mosque. Supreme Court in its ruling had also said that within 3 months the land should be given to a trust, and then this trust will decide the future course of action. This 3-month deadline was to end on February 9. Now a 15-member trust has been formed, headed by former Attorney General of India K. Parasaran. Alternatively, the UP government has decided to allot 5 acres of land at Ayodhya to Sunni Central Waqf Board, which they may accept or where they may set up or construct a mosque. But is this announcement in the middle of an election season a violation of Model Code of Conduct? Because as soon as the election dates are announced by the Election Commission, till the declaration of results, Model Code of Conduct is enforced. What is the objective of Model Code of Conduct? To ensure a level playing field. If the government is in a position to announce any new scheme, to announce any new policy, then the elections can tilt in favor of the ruling party. That is why in the middle of Model Code of Conduct, no new schemes can be launched, no new policies can be announced, because we have to ensure level playing field. The Election Commission of India says that this announcement does not violate Model Code of Conduct. The government says that since the deadline was to end on February 9, we had to announce this trust. But there are critics who say that either the government should have waited for February 9, which is a day after the Delhi elections are over. On February 9, this trust should have been announced by the center. On the other hand, there are others who say that the government should have announced the formation of this trust well before the election dates or well before the Delhi voting, so as to not violate the Model Code of Conduct. But nevertheless, this is what you need to understand from this newspaper article. Who are the members of this trust? You need not to remember, is irrelevant from your examination point of view. But yes, this is something that may be relevant for your prelims. 2 prominent practicing Hindus will be nominated by the Board of Trustees. 2 Hindu IAS officials below the rank of Joint Secretary will be appointed by the centre and the UP government, and Ayodhya District Collector will be the ex officio trustee. There is a detailed video lecture available on the Ayodhya verdict that's available on our YouTube channel. The link to that video lecture is provided in the video description. Please go through that video lecture. Everything related to the Ayodhya verdict will be crystal clear to you. Now let's look at another news on page number 13. Surrogacy Regulation Bill was passed by Lok Sabha in December 2018. The bill was then sent to Rajya Sabha, and Rajya Sabha referred this bill to a select committee. Now, select committee has submitted its report. But before we analyze that report, let's understand some of the terms involved. There is a husband and the wife. The wife is not in a position to conceive, not in a position to deliver a child for a variety of reasons. Then what happens? This couple, what they do, they approach another woman and they rent the womb of this mother. This is what we call surrogacy. This renting of a womb is known as surrogacy. What is the process? The egg of the woman is fertilized by the sperm of the man, and then this fertilized egg or embryo is carried into the womb of the another woman called the surrogate mother. This is the simplistic explanation, because what can also happen, this woman may not be able to produce the egg, or this egg may not be fertilized by the sperm of the man. So there may be issues related to the sperm of the man. There may be issues with the woman as well. In this case, what happens? An anonymous donor can donate the egg if there is a problem with the egg of the woman, or an anonymous donor can donate the sperm if there is a problem with the man, depending upon what the requirement is. And then in an outside environment, the egg can be fertilized, and then this fertilized egg or embryo is carried into the womb of the surrogate mother. India emerged as the hub of surrogacy because of the inexpensive process in India. Why? It was easier for the foreigners to find a surrogate mother in India, particularly in the Anand district of Gujarat, which came to be known as the surrogate capital of the world. Women, professional women who couldn't afford pregnancy as their careers could be jeopardized, or they were too weak physically to go through the pregnancy period, they would opt for surrogacy. But then there were concerns. Concerns? Number one, there was a German couple who approached a surrogate mother in India, and then the child was born. But the child born was not provided Indian citizenship, because according to citizenship laws, either one parent should be an Indian or the other should not be an illegal immigrant at the time of the birth. Here we are talking about German couple, so Indian citizenship was not provided to that child. So far as Germany is concerned, in Germany surrogacy is illegal, which means a child born out of surrogacy is not provided German nationality. When this couple approached the German embassy for travel documents, German embassy refused the travel documents. Ultimately, matter went to the Gujarat High Court. Gujarat High Court said that travel documents should be issued to this child so that they can travel back to Germany. But within this period, Germany relaxed its rules and allowed this German couple to come with the surrogate child, and this child was provided with the travel documents by Germany. So that was one concern. Second concern, there was an Australian couple. Australian couple approached a surrogate mother in India, and this surrogate mother delivered twins, a boy as well as a girl. This couple refused to take the girl because they already had a girl child. Third concern, in some instances, this surrogate mother was deserted. Those who asked for the services of this surrogate mother, they left her high and dry and they left the country. Ultimately, this surrogate mother was exploited. She was denied nutritious food. She was denied any monetary support. Fourth, there was an ethical argument raised by few as well. For example, there have been instances where a woman is in a position to deliver a child. That means the woman and the husband, they are fertile. But this woman is an aspirational woman. She does not want to jeopardize her career, and then she opts for surrogacy. There have been other instances where a woman wants to preserve her figure, wants to preserve her shape of the body, and that is why she is refusing pregnancy, and ultimately they opt for surrogacy. If you ask me, I don't have a problem with that. If there is a woman who wants to preserve her figure and wants to opt for surrogacy, it's her right, we should not interfere. Or if there is a woman who wants to sustain her livelihood, who does not want to jeopardize her career, it is within her right to either opt for surrogacy or does not have a child at all. But some did raise this question, and that is why a surrogacy regulation bill was passed by the Lok Sabha in the year 2018. According to this bill, commercial surrogacy is prohibited, which means non-resident Indians, foreigners, fertile couples, they cannot opt for surrogacy. But that does not mean surrogacy is banned in India. Commercial surrogacy is banned, but altruistic surrogacy is allowed. What does that mean? If there is a childless Indian couple, because only Indians are allowed to opt for surrogacy. If there is a childless Indian couple who has been married for 5 years, but they don't have a child, they can opt for altruistic surrogacy. But the surrogate mother, she should be the close relative of this couple. That means those who want to opt for surrogacy, they have to approach a surrogate mother, but this surrogate mother should be the close relative of this couple, should be related to them through blood. Single parents, for example, a single mother, single father, they cannot opt for surrogacy. Members from LGBTQ community, they cannot opt for surrogacy. This surrogate mother herself should be married, herself should have delivered a child, should not be a non-resident Indian, should not be a foreigner as well, and this woman can act as surrogate mother only once in her lifetime. And the bill also provides for punishment. Whosoever violates these rules, they will be sentenced to up to 10 years in jail. A fine of up to 10 lakh rupees can also be imposed on them. But there were also concerns raised by those who opposed this bill. And that is why this bill was referred to the Select Committee of Rajya Sabha. Now the Select Committee of Rajya Sabha has submitted its report. What is mentioned in this report? Single women, whether widow or a divorcee, and persons of Indian origin, they can also avail of surrogacy. Second important change. If you are saying that the woman who will act as the surrogate mother, she should be a close relative related to the couple by blood, this will restrict the availability of surrogate mothers, and thereby those individuals, those couples who genuinely want to have a child out of surrogacy, their dreams will be shattered. One condition of the surrogacy bill was that if there is a childless Indian couple who has been married for 5 years, only then can they opt for altruistic surrogacy. But Select Committee says, why should a couple wait for 5 years? Because this is too long a period for a couple to wait for a child. But these are only recommendations of the Select Committee of Rajya Sabha. Now Rajya Sabha will have to debate these suggestions. Ultimately there will be voting. Let's wait and watch. What will be the shape and form of this bill when it is passed by Rajya Sabha? Then we will have an elaborate discussion on that bill. But that is what you need to know from this newspaper article. Now let's look at some of the editorials and columns from today's newspaper. The first one, course correction for the Speaker's office. The Speaker's office is one of the most important offices in a parliamentary democracy. She wields enormous power and has enormous responsibilities as well. The Speaker is the custodian of the House. She ensures the decorum in the House. She gets to decide who can speak in the House, for how long, because she is the head of Business Advisory Council, because this Business Advisory Council decides how much time should be allocated to a bill, who should be the speaker, who will speak on that bill, for how long. Speaker also has a power that she can certify what is a money bill. Speaker also has a power under anti-defection law. She has the power to disqualify a member on the grounds of defection under the 10th schedule of Indian Constitution. She is the ultimate interpreter and arbiter of those provisions which relate to the functioning of the House. Her decisions are final and binding and ordinarily cannot be easily challenged. Yes, when Aadhaar was passed as a money bill, a petition was filed by Jairam Ramesh before the Supreme Court, arguing that the decision of the Speaker to certify whether a bill is a money bill or not is not final and binding, because judiciary has the power of judicial review. But one thing we know for sure is that Speaker has enormous power and enormous responsibilities. She has the power to discipline the members of the House. She can suspend members of the House. She can ask the marshals of the House to throw these members out if they have created disturbance in the House. So she has enormous powers, but there is an issue. The Speaker belongs to the ruling party, or she belongs to the ruling coalition. Can she be non-partisan? Can she be unbiased? Let's look at the observation of Justice J.S. Verma in Kyoto Holohan versus Zachilhu. In this case, J.S. Verma says the Speaker, being an authority within the House and his tenure being dependent on the will of the majority, therein likelihood of suspicion of bias could not be ruled out because Speaker is elected by the members of the Lok Sabha by simple majority, and she can be removed at any point in time if Lok Sabha passes a resolution by effective majority. So whether Speaker stays in her office or not is determined whether she commands majority in Lok Sabha or not. Which means that since her tenure is dependent upon the majority in Lok Sabha, she can be partisan in her approach. She can be biased in her approach as well. In Manipur case, the Supreme Court had suggested, let's provide a time frame to the Speaker so that within this time frame she has to decide on questions related to disqualification under anti-defection law. Because any member of the parliament can be disqualified under anti-defection law. But who can disqualify this member of the parliament? The Speaker has the power to disqualify this member of the parliament. But we have seen instances. If this member of parliament against whom there are allegations that he has violated anti-defection law, if this member of the parliament belongs to the ruling party or ruling coalition, no action is taken by the Speaker. Or if this member of the parliament belongs to the opposition, then the Speaker quickly acts on the disqualification petition and disqualifies this member of the parliament on the grounds of anti-defection law. But how can Speaker delay her decision whether to disqualify a member on the grounds of anti-defection law or not? Because there is no time frame mentioned in the 10th schedule. There is no time frame within which the Speaker has to act on this disqualification petition. So in the Manipur case, the Supreme Court had made a suggestion that Parliament should rethink about the role of the Speaker. Parliament should provide for a time frame within which the Speaker should decide on these disqualification questions. But for that, Parliament had to amend the Constitution. Parliament had to amend the 10th schedule of the Indian Constitution. So what this column talks about is that we don't need a band-aid solution to the office of the Speaker. We need a complete revamp of the office of the Speaker. And how can we revamp the office of the Speaker? Number one, the Speaker of Lok Sabha or Legislative Assembly, once he or she is elected to the post of the Speaker, she should resign from the party so that she remains non-partisan in her outlook. And she should remain in office till her retirement. Just like in UK, just like in England. For example, in UK, John Bercow, he served as the Speaker of the House of Commons for 10 years. And during this period, many governments were changed. But still he stayed in his office because in UK, the Speaker, once he is elected to the post of the Speaker, he resigns from his party and serves as the Speaker till his retirement. Another important change. Let's say, for example, Mr. Om Birla, who is the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. If the reforms are accepted, Mr. Om Birla has to resign from the BJP so that he remains non-partisan in his outlook, impartial in his outlook. But once the term of the current Lok Sabha is over, should Mr. Om Birla contest from his Lok Sabha constituency from Rajasthan, of which he is a member of the parliament? In that case, yes, he should be allowed to contest elections as well. But no one should be allowed to field candidate against Om Birla. Which means that once Mr. Om Birla has been elected as the Speaker to Lok Sabha, he should resign from his party so that he appears non-partisan, so that he appears independent in his functioning. But later, when he has to contest elections from his Lok Sabha constituency, should he be allowed to contest elections? Yes. But to ensure that he remains impartial throughout his term, we should ensure that no political party sets up a candidate against Om Birla so that Om Birla gets elected from his constituency unopposed. Because that's what happens in UK. The Speaker contests an election without any ticket, without any party giving him the ticket. Why? Because let's say, for example, I'm the speaker. I will continue to be the speaker for 5 years. But after that, a party has to give me a ticket. Otherwise, I cannot win the election. If I have to depend on a political party for ticket, I will not be impartial in my functioning. I will not be independent in my approach. I will not be independent while interpreting the rules of the business and procedure of Lok Sabha. And when I'm contesting elections from my Lok Sabha constituency, if opposition also sets up a candidate against me, then tomorrow if I'm elected, I may not be sympathetic to these opposition members. I may be in a position to victimize these opposition members. That is the way to ensure independence and impartiality of the office of the speaker. And that is what you need to understand from this newspaper article. Now let's look at an important editorial, purifying water. We have Bureau of Indian Standards. It ranks the cities on the quality of the water supply. For example, it ranks the cities based on 28 parameters. And if a city follows all these parameters, justifies all these parameters, we say that the water supplied in that city is fit for human consumption. Mumbai was the only city to meet all these standards. Delhi, on the other hand, failed in 19, Chennai failed in 9 standards, Kolkata in 10 standards, which basically means Mumbai was the only city to meet all these standards. But that's not the only problem. Most of the country do not have access to piped water connections. There is an index released by Niti Aayog called Composite Water Management Index. Niti Aayog says 70% of our water supply is contaminated. There is an NGO called Water Aid. Water Aid releases its water quality index. And according to this water quality index, India's rank is 120 out of 122 countries. In this backdrop, when the water supply is contaminated, when people do not have access to piped water connections, when Bureau of Indian Standards say that only Mumbai has the water supply which is fit for human consumption, in this backdrop, what is the alternative for consumers? What is the alternative for the larger public? They opt for reverse osmosis water purifiers. What happens because of this? Water which is contaminated with viruses, contaminated with bacteria, contaminated with chemicals, this water is treated so as to make this water safe for human consumption. But then there are two issues. Issue number one, these water purifiers, while they are treating water, they waste 80% of the water. 80% of the water is wasted. And during treatment, vital nutrients which are required for human body, for example, calcium, magnesium, these vital nutrients are also lost. Not entirely lost, but they are lost. What happened then? National Green Tribunal banned the use of RO water purifiers in Delhi. Manufacturers of these RO devices, they challenged this order. What was the result? The result was a draft notification was issued by Environment Ministry. To save water, the notification says in areas where BIS standard water is supplied, RO water purifiers cannot be used. This is only a draft. It has not been implemented yet. What is the draft? Draft says in those areas where BIS standard water is supplied, in those areas you cannot use RO devices, you cannot use these membrane-based water purification systems. Water conservation is a must. What we need? Number one, we need rainwater harvesting. For example, rainwater should be stored so that this rainwater can be used for purposes other than drinking. For example, for washing cars, gardening, cleaning our houses. Why should we use clean water? We can use this rainwater. Or the water that we use in our kitchens, the water that we use in our washrooms or restrooms, we can also treat this water so that this water can be used for non-potable purposes. For purposes other than drinking purposes, we can use this water. What this editorial says is that government must ensure BIS standard water so that there is no need of RO devices and water is conserved. We also need piped water connections so that every household is provided piped water connection. For this, the government has announced that by 2024, all households will have piped water connections. So there is a deadline. By 2024, all households should have piped water connections. But the fact is, this is the 12th time that India has set a deadline to take water to every household. But center alone cannot be helpful. Water is basically a state subject in the distribution of powers between center and the state. What we also need, cooperation from the states. What we also need, behavioral change. You and me are equally responsible to ensure that water is supplied to all, that there is water for all in this country. That is what you need to understand from this newspaper editorial. There is another beautiful column written by Indra Hirve, fashioning the framework of a new India. We are witnessing economic slowdown or economic crisis. Former Chief Economic Advisor Arvind Subramaniam says that our economy is headed towards the ICU, Intensive Care Unit. We have discussed multiple times in the past in our daily classes as well as in our weekly Economy This Week lectures what is required. What is required? More expenditure on health, more expenditure on education. And if we spend more on health and education, we are going to create an inclusive India. And this inclusive India means that we should create an India of shared prosperity. Because the problem right now is of falling demand. People are not demanding goods and services. Unless and until people at the lower strata, they are also provided incomes, they are also healthy, they will not be in a position to generate demand, which is very vital for the economic turnaround in this country. We have discussed this issue multiple times, so we will not discuss this issue again. But if you want, please read this newspaper column. It's a very beautiful column. You can incorporate the points mentioned in this column for your answer writing as well. Now let's look at practice questions. Number 1. Which of the following is or are Scorpion submarines? Diesel electric submarines. Kalvari, yes. Karanj, yes. Khanderi, yes. Answer is all of the above. What is the context? Navy will have its third Scorpion submarine this year. If we look at INS Kalvari, it was indigenously built under the Project 75 of the Government of India. Under this project, Navy was authorized to build 6 submarines in collaboration with a French firm, DCNS. Kalvari can travel 1020 kilometers underwater and it can dive up to 300 meters beneath the water. This gives it a stealth capability. It can escape the eyes of the enemy, or should we say this feature eludes the enemy detection. So all these 3 are Scorpion submarines. Let's look at another question. Vivad se Vishwas is related to income tax. What is the context? In today's The Hindu newspaper, a bill, Vivad se Vishwas bill, is mentioned. This bill has been introduced in Lok Sabha. For example, if there is a dispute between an individual and the state about the income tax, what is the alternative? This dispute is dragged to the Income Tax Tribunal. If you're not satisfied with the verdict of this tribunal, then you can file an appeal before Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. And in India right now, there are 5 lakh cases of tax disputes pending in these tribunals. The finance minister announced Vivad se Vishwas scheme, under which if there is a tax liability against an individual, you can pay these taxes by 31st March 2020. And if you pay these taxes, then all these interests will be waived. All these penalties that may have been imposed against you for non-payment of tax, they all will be waived. So this is Vivad se Vishwas, and this is related to income tax. Which of the following statement is incorrect about Model Code of Conduct? Model code of conduct is enforceable by law. This is an incorrect statement because model code of conduct has not been provided with statutory backing. There is no law which provides backing to model code of conduct. It's a voluntary declaration by all political parties that we will abide by model code of conduct. There is no law talking about model code of conduct. Question number 4. Identify what we are talking about. It helps in determining the chemical composition of stars and gases far away and even calculate their temperature and density. It is used to detect leaks. It is very unreactive. What are we talking about? We're talking about helium. Let's look at question number 5, map-based question. The equator passes through which of the following countries of Africa? This is the map of the Africa. So it is Somalia, Kenya, Gabon as well. It is not Nigeria. It is not South Sudan. So what is the correct answer? 1, 2 and 3. B is the correct answer. Let's look at mains based questions. Number 1, answer should be less than 250 words. India's police force is under stress. It has been unable to cope with the new challenges to public order. Autonomy is the only way out. Comment. Question number 2, suggest improvements or changes to make Surrogacy Bill more inclusive. That is it from our newspaper analysis for today. Thank you for being with us. Have a great day.